Everyone. So today we're going to talk about wines. So, what is wine? Wine is an alcoholic beverage made with fermented juice of grapes. There are three main types of wine: white wine, red wine, and rosé wine. White wine is white or pale, rosé wine is pink or brick, and red wine is red, purple, or opaque in color. The differences between these wines can be found in their color appearance, their production process, their taste, and their pairings with food. So let's talk about white wine first. White wines are mainly made from white grapes or green grapes, but sometimes also can be made from red or black grapes. They are available in a variety of flavors, from light zesty to rich and creamy. Some of the varieties are Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, Pinot Blanc, and Muscat. First of all, regardless of green or dark grapes, all grape juices after pressing are either clear, pale, or light greenish in color. So any grape can be made into white wine. However, that might not always produce the best flavors. So white wines are made by fermenting only the grape juice. All skins and seeds are separated immediately after crushing the grapes. Red wines are made from black grapes. Its color shade ranges from light to dark, and it also varies in sweetness. The process of making red wine is similar to white wine, except both seeds and skins are left in the juice during fermentation. Red wine gets all of their red or purple color from the skin of the grapes. They also impart other flavors and texture to the wine, noticeably their tannins. What is tannin? Tannin is a naturally occurring polyphenol found in plants, seeds, bark, wood, leaves, and fruit skins. You'll find tannin in the skins, seeds, and stems of grapes. It is also found in oak barrels. Tannin in wine adds both bitterness and astringency as well as complexity. So the grapes, which has thinner skin, produce rather lighter red in both color and structure, such as Pinot Noir and Grenache. In other cases, grapes with thicker skin deliver some of the most robust, bold, and fuller body wines, such as Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Tempranillo, and Petit Syrah. So let's talk about rosé wine next. Rosé wines are made from black grapes, but the skin is removed before the wine is colored. It can also be made by blending red and white wine together. It can be dry or sweet. Some varieties of rosé wine include Grenache, Pinot Noir, Gamay, and Cabernet Franc. After crushing, the grape's skins will be left macerating with its juices for a few hours. Its juices will take on the color from the skin as well as some of the flavors. This results in a pinkish wine with tannins and additional flavors extracted from its skin, such as rose petals and dried flowers. So what is vintage? Wine grapes take an entire season to ripen, and thus wine is produced just once a year. This is where the term vintage comes from. Vint stands for winemaking, and age implies the year it was made. So when you see a vintage year listed on the label, that's the year the grapes were picked and made into wine. So we use two different types of cork, natural and synthetic cork, for bottling the wines. So one of the big differences between these corks is the amount of oxygen that they let in through. When oxygen comes into contact with wine, a process called oxidation occurs, and oxidation has the power to change the flavor of a wine. So natural corks let in a very small amount of oxygen as it is porous. This makes them ideal for aging wine over longer periods of time. Natural corks are also more environmentally friendly than synthetic corks. The synthetic corks are made from polyethylene. A great part about synthetic cork is that you don't have to worry about the smelling, and they are also cheaper to produce. As synthetic corks don't expand and contract when the bottle does, so this could lead to an abundance or a deficiency of oxygen entering the bottle, which is not suitable for aging. They are also harder to remove if it has been left in the wine for too long. So we're going to talk about Old World versus New World wines. Old World wines are from countries or regions where winemaking first originated. So Old World wines countries include France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Austria, Hungary, and Germany. They are often described as tasting lighter, having less alcohol, having higher acidity, and tasting less fruity. While New World wines are from countries or regions where winemaking grapes was imported during and after the age of exploration. New World wine countries include the United States, Australia, South Africa, Chile, Argentina, and New Zealand. China, India, South Africa, and Japan are also New World wine regions. They are often described as tasting riper, having higher alcohol, having less acidity, and tasting more fruity. Let's talk about the winemaking process. So the first stage of winemaking process is harvesting. It is the grapes which contain all the required esters, tannins, and acids that make delicious wine. So it is important to make sure that the sweetness and acidity of the grapes are in perfect balance while picking the grapes. Weather also plays an important role in this process. Harvesting can be done by hand or by machines. However, many of the winemakers prefer to do it by hand as machines are known to negatively affect the grapes and the vineyard. Once grapes are picked, they are taken to the winery and then are sorted in bunches. Underripe and rotten grapes are removed. Once the grapes are sorted in bunches, they are de-steamed and crushed. So the next step is crushing. The majority of the winemakers do this crushing process mechanically at present. The mechanical presses strud or stump the grapes into must. Must is fresh grape juice which is the outcome of the crushing process and contains seeds, solids, and skins of the grapes. If white wine is being made, then the seeds, solids, and skins are quickly separated from the grape juice to prevent the tannins and color for leaching in the wine. If red wine is being made, the seeds, solids, and skins are allowed to stay in contact with the juice to allow the juice to get additional tannins, flavor, and color. Once the crushing and pressing is done, it is followed by the fermentation process. Must naturally starts fermenting within 6 to 12 hours while the yeast is added to it. This fermentation process continues until all the sugar is transformed into alcohol, resulting in the production of dry wine. If sweet wine is to be made, winemakers halt the process in between to prevent either entire sugar from converting. The total fermentation process can take about a week to a month and even more. So the next step is the clarification process. This is the process in which tannins, proteins, and dead yeast is removed from the wine. For this, the wine is transferred into stainless steel tanks or oak barrels. Filtration or fining process is used for clarification. For instance, some winemakers add clay to the wine, to which the unwanted particles will stick to and will take them to the bottom of the storage tank or barrel. In the filtration process, filters are used to catch the larger particles. The final step of winemaking process is aging and bottling. The wine can be instantly bottled or the winemaker can give additional aging to the wine. For aging, the wine is transferred to oak barrel, stainless steel tanks, or bottles. Many of the winemakers prefer using oak barrel for aging as it is known to add a rounder, smoother, and more vanilla-like flavor to the wine. For white wine, steel tanks are generally preferred. Once the aging process finishes, the wine is then bottled with screw cap or cork. So, what is foxy aroma and flavor? Foxy is a tasting term for the peculiar flavor of many wines, particularly red wines made from American vines and American hybrids. Vine varieties develop from both American and European species of the Vitis genus, particularly Vitis labrusca. The grape is one of the most heavily scented. reeking of something closer to animal fur than fruit flavor or any other aroma associated with wine. Although the candy-like aroma is incidentally quite close to that of the tiny wild strawberry. So there are varieties of grapes used in winemaking all over the world. So some of them are Auxerrois, Barbarossa, Barbera, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, Chenin Blanc, Freisa, Gamay, Gamay Beaujolais, Grenache, Johannisberg Riesling, Malbec, Merlot, Muscat, Nebbiolo, Petit Syrah, Pinot Noir, Pinotage, Pinot Gris, Riesling, Sangiovese, Sauvignon Blanc, Syrah, Tempranillo, Traminer, Viognier, Zinfandel, and many more. So why are some wines called by regions and other wines by grape varietal? This determination is made depending on whether the wine was made in the New World or Old World. Old World wines are usually named after the region where they were grown, while New World wines are usually named for the sole or principal grape in the bottle. Geography plays an important role in the understanding of both grapes and wines. The temperature, climate, elevation, and soil type greatly influences the taste of wine. So let's see how these affect the wines. The temperature. Grapes ripen at different speeds, which means that average temperature is a huge component in determining which varieties should be planted in each region. In general, warmer climates allow grapes to fully ripen and mature, developing deep pigments, bold fruit flavors, greater sweetness, and higher alcohol content. Cooler climates show a softer side and maintains juicy acidity. So climate takes into account the weather patterns and atmospheric conditions that can develop or destroy the wine grapes. These factors include things like rainfall, humidity, wind, frost, hail, and quality of sunlight. The best vintages usually result from stable climates that allow for slow, steady ripening without heavy rainfall or extreme temperatures. Elevation. From terraced sloping hills to deep down in the valley, elevation affects how grapes grow. High altitude has cooler temperatures at night and longer growing seasons, which help grapes conserve their acidity and lead to more elegant, age-worthy wines. Mountain and hillside vineyards also tend to receive more direct and concentrated sunlight, leading to greater color concentration and stronger tannins. Soil type. Soil type determines the availability of nutrients, water drainage, water retention, and can even moderate temperature in a vine's immediate microclimate. What is microclimate? Microclimate are small areas like individual row of vines or a section of a vineyard. These tiny spaces have a different balance of warmth or cold, humidity or dryness than their surrounding areas. Grapevines perform better when nutrients are scarce and roots aren't swampy, which means that each grape has more character, concentration, and quality. Sandy soil vineyards tend to produce more elegant wines than clay-based soils. So, this time we're going to talk about different countries and the variety of grapes grown there and their history. Let's talk about Germany first. Germany. The red grapes grown in Germany are Pachus, Chardonnay, Elbling, Farberebe, Gewürztraminer, Grauer Burgunder, Gutedel, Huxellrebe, Kerner, Murillo Muscat, Ribaner, Ortega, Riesling, Surebe, and Sylvaner. The white grapes grown in Germany are Blohr-Lemberger, Domina, Donfelder, Portuguese, Schwarzriesling, Spätburgunder, and Trollinger. So, history of Germany vineyards or winery. Germany has a history of winemaking that dates back to 100 BC, when ancient Romans who conquered the region began producing wines on local soil. During the Middle Ages, monks upheld the tradition of making wine and cultivated the vineyards that are famous to this day. Germany's wine reputation lost its luster in the 1960s and 70s when large quantities of sweet blended wines were created for export. Today, focus is on drier style of wines, which make up nearly 70% of production. Germany also produces some extraordinary sparkling wine. They are the world's largest consumers of sparkling wine per capita. Most importantly, they love the great Pinot varietals of the world: Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, and Pinot Blanc. It is the world's third largest producer of Pinot Noir, and over the last 40 years has adapted the same high-quality production methods that are also found in Burgundy, France. Next is Australia. The red grapes grown in Australia are Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Grenache, Pinot Noir, Mourvèdre, Tempranillo, and Petit Verdot. The white grapes grown in Australia are Chardonnay, Verdelho, Semillon, Pinot Gris, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, and Botrytis. History of Australia winery. Australia's history of wine manufacture traces back to its settlement in 1788. Governor Arthur Phillip brought vines with him, and numerous vineyards were established in the area that is now Sydney. By the 1890s, the popular Hunter Valley, Barbarossa Valley, and Yarra Valley had begun to produce wine. Until the 1950s, Australia primarily produced fortified wines. These varieties were popular as the additional alcohol protected the wine from microbiological attack, making it suitable for storage and transport. In the 1960s, Australia turned its focus to the production of sweet and sparkling wines. In the latter of the 60s, full-bodied reds came into vogue. Aromatic wines such as Gewürztraminer Riesling, and Rhine Riesling became popular in the 1970s. By the end of the 70s, the Australian tastes had changed from semi-sweet wines to dry whites. Chardonnay became the drink of choice, and it is still a popular option for wine drinkers today. In the late 1980s, Australian wines began to break into the European market. Australia earned a reputation for fresh, fruity flavors and robust reds. By 1995, Australia had secured 1.5% of the world's wine trade, and this has grown to 3% today. Australia is currently the 7th largest wine manufacturer in the world, producing more than 1,000 million liters of wine every year. The blend. The Shiraz Pinot Noir blend of Australia can trace its history back to early winemaking in the Hunter Valley in the 1940s. After that, production came to rest on single varietal wines. In conclusion, Australian wines have the highest ABV between Australia and Germany. Shiraz has up to 15.5% ABV, while German wines are more sweet and their ABV is between 5.5 to 8%. Shiraz can be paired with grilled meat, vegetables, beef stew. It should be served between 16 to 18 degrees. Unopened Shiraz can be shelved for 6 months to 60 years. There are 3 major red wine producing regions in Italy. The first one is Piedmont. The grapes that are famous there are Nebbiolo, Barbera, and Dolcetto. So, history of Piedmont. Piedmont or Piemonte is considered the top wine region in Italy. Celtic tribes inhabited the Piedmont wine region until the Romans took over. Nebbiolo started becoming famous in 1000 AD. When the Roman Empire fell, so did Piemonte. Being on the border of Italy, it didn't have much protection from invaders and was taken over by the French. In 1843, the Count of Cavour, a politician and wine producer, decided to catalog the great heritage of grapes found at the highest peaks in Piemonte. Today, Piemonte is among the most important Italian regions for both the quantity and the quality of wine produced. Though Nebbiolo and Dolcetto are produced in significant quantities, Barbera is the most widely planted grape in the region for red wines. The second one is Tuscany, Sangiovese. The history. Wine has been a part of Tuscany for more than 3 millennia. The Etruscans first settled the area. They brought vines from Asia with them. Upon finding the wild crop, the Etruscans set about domesticating and eventually cultivating the grapes that would someday be today's Sangiovese and Lambrusco varieties. During the Middle Ages, merchants of the Sienese territory began planting vineyards systematically throughout the inland regions. Wine production throughout the Tuscany continued to flourish, and in 1710 the first flask of local wine crossed the Tuscany borders. It was a huge hit, and Tuscany was soon providing wine for a larger market. The Sangiovese grapes, which originated in the Sienese hills, gave Tuscany's Chianti a bold, unique flavor. In a mere 20 years, the quantity of wine being produced was cut in half, and a new focus was placed on quality. The result has been worldwide recognition and a reputation for excellence. The last one is Veneto. It produces 3 main types of grapes: Corvina, Molinara, and Rondinella. The history of Veneto winery. Before the Roman Empire came to Veneto, winemaking was not yet a livelihood for the region, but more of a hobby. The Romans changed all that when they showed up around 200 BC. It was the Romans who cut the landscape into a patchwork of fields to be used for growing assorted things, with much of the land being dedicated to grape vines. The port of Venice began to provide money to the region, allowing the artisans of the area to perfect their skills, making Veneto and its great cities home to the finest art, fashion, and wine in the world. The port then brought these crafts all over the world, creating demand for their superior products. It was not long before Veneto was the center of the fashion and winemaking industries. Veneto continued to make history. It became home to the first Italian school for vine growing in 1885, and it also hosted the first ever wine tourism road. Blend. The Molinara and Rondinella is an Italian red wine grape variety that mostly commonly appears in the blended wines of Valpolicella and Bardolino. In conclusion, Corvina has the highest ABV of 15% among other wines in Italy. The blend of Corvina Rondinella has a higher ABV of 16%. However, the only single varietal wines that has the highest ABV is Corvina. So Corvina can be well paired with spicy seafood stews or grilled salmon. It should be served between 14 to 16 degree. And if the screw cap is properly used, then the wine will last up to 3 months. There are 3 major red wine producing regions in Spain. The first one is Rioja. It produces Tempranillo and Garnacha. History of Rioja Winery. Rioja is a part of the Camino de Santiago. The pilgrims were offered wine while they stayed in the monasteries located along the way. In 1560, Rioja wine producers agreed to put a common label to their wines. The idea was to guarantee the origin of their wines. One of the main problems for selling Rioja wine was the distance to a port. An additional problem to the transport of wine was its conservation. The use of oak barrel for this purpose in Rioja was to bring the wine in this way to America in 1786. The wine was well preserved, so this objective was achieved. Camilo Hurtado de Amejaga learned the production methods and built a winery in El Ciego in Rioja and requested to plant 50 hectares of vineyard. The wines of Marqués de Riscal obtained a great success in international competitions. This success encouraged other producers, and the lack of wine made in Bordeaux brought French investment to Rioja. The region and its wine became consolidated and built a reputation that has grown till today. Second one is Ribera del Duero. It produces Tempranillo, like basically it is also called Tinto Fino. The history of Ribera del Duero winery. Around the 1200s, in the Ribera del Duero wine region, winemaking grew into what we would recognize as similar to winemaking today. By then, the region had established regular wine production, even trading, exports, and underground cellars. By the 1400s, ordinances and other measures were already being put in place to control the region's wine production. But it would take more than 500 years for controls regarding quality to be put in place. Designation of origin (DO) status was only achieved in 1982. Prior to this, the wine production quality was not controlled in Ribera del Duero, and therefore it suffered. Thanks to the relatively recent success of the Tinto Fino grape, today approximately 112 vineyards or bodegas cultivate a variety of grapes throughout the 7,400 acre or 3,000 hectare area of Ribera del Duero. One of these vineyards, Vega Sicilia, has been producing wine continuously for more than a century. The last one is Catalonia. It produces Carinena. History of Catalonia winery. The first vines were planted by the Greek more than 2,500 years ago. They created a coastal colony called Emporion, currently Empúries, for trading purposes. Later on, the Romans expanded the wine culture all over Catalonia and Hispania. After the terrible arrival of phylloxera into Europe, Catalonia reinvented itself into one of the most famous sparkling wines worldwide. The blend of Carinena Garnacha is a popular red wine blend used in southern France and northeastern Spain, particularly Catalonia. In conclusion, Garnacha has the highest ABV of 15% from Rioja wines. Light Garnacha wines should be paired with poultry or pork, salmon, trout, or barbecue. A fuller-bodied Garnacha makes the perfect wine for a special occasion. It should be served slightly chilled, between 60 to 65 degrees. So there are three major red wine producing regions in France. The first one is Bordeaux. The red grapes grown in Bordeaux are Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Malbec, Carmenère. White grapes grown in Bordeaux are Semillon, Sauvignon Blanc, Muscadel, Colombard, Merlot Blanc, Sauvignon Gris, and Ugni Blanc. The history of Bordeaux winery. Wine culture in Bordeaux started more than 2,000 years ago, when Romans came to the region and started cultivating vineyards so their soldiers would have something to drink. And that wine was much different than the wine of today. It was very fruity and had a high alcohol content, but it would also have spoiled very quickly, within a year. Wine was not exported from France until the 12th century, but that all changed when Eleanor of Aquitaine married Henry II of England. She and Henry abolished the tariffs on wines coming into England, which allowed Eleanor to continue to drink her Bordeaux wine. A lot of Bordeaux was actually marshlands, but the Dutch went in and drained a lot of the water, allowing the ground to become more conducive to vineyards. Blend. A red Bordeaux blend is primarily composed of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Cabernet Franc, with smaller portions of Malbec and Petit Verdot. The white Bordeaux blend is primarily made of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon with a splash of Muscadel. The second wine region in France is Rhône, or Rhône Valley. Red grapes grown in Rhône are Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, Cinsault, Grenache, Muscardin, Vaccarese, Picpoul Noir, and Terret Noir. White grapes grown in Rhône are Roussanne, Marsanne, Viognier, Bourbolenc, Clairette, Grenache Blanc, Picpoul Blanc, Picardan, and Muscat Blanc. History of Rhone Valley Winery. The ancient Greeks were the first people to plant vineyards in the region. This took place in 400 BC in the area of Martial. The ancient Romans knew how to spot the best sites for vineyard planting as well. By the 1st century AD, they too cultivated the region, planting vines in Vienne, which is in the general area of what we now call Côte Rôtie. Like most of Europe, the attack of phylloxera devastated vineyards all over the Rhone Valley. For many growers, they were able to make more money planting apricots and cherries than they earned from vineyards. Things began improving by the 1960s when a handful of producers began making great wine. Several wineries began creating single vineyard wines as well as all vine cuvées. Vineyard owners began picking ripe fruits. Experiments with increased amounts of new French oak barrels for the aging and longer extraction periods were becoming part of the winemakers. As the 21st century continued marching on, it became obvious that 2015 in the northern Rhone and 2016 in the southern Rhone were the best vintages. Blend. Grapes like Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, Cinsault, Carignan, and Cunoz are made into red blends, while Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier, and Clairette are popular choices for white blends. The last reason is Burgundy. Red grapes grown in Burgundy are Pinot Noir and Gamay. White grapes grown in Burgundy are Chardonnay and Alicote. History of Burgundy Winery. The birth of the vineyard took place in 500 BC. The 10th century was the first period of growth, with the wine of the monks. The second period of growth happened with the Dukes of Burgundy in the 14th century. Importance of the role of wine merchants and improvement in road network happened in the 18th century. The appellations d'origine contrôlée AOC system was established in the 20th century. When the vineyards were reorganized in the early 20th century, Burgundy wines found themselves in competition with others, creating the INAO in 1935. The Institute's regulations helped to boost sales and still determine wine production conditions today. In conclusion, Pinot Noir and Bordeaux contain 13 to 14% ABV, and Grenache contains 15% ABV, which is the highest among all other wines in all Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Rhône. You can pair Grenache with grilled, stewed, and braised meats like beef, veal, pork, and chicken. It also pairs well with tomato-based dishes. It should be served between 60 to 65 degrees. It can be served 1 to 2 weeks after its opening. Some facts about wine. Domaine de la Romanée-Conti Grand Cru is the most expensive French wine, which cost $56,287 per bottle. Bordeaux is the most famous French wine area. Romanée-Conti, Petrus, and Chateau Margaux from Bordeaux are the 3 famous wines in France. There are many white wines in France, but white wines from Burgundy are the best. Some of them are Sablis Grand Cru, Corton Sarlemon, Meursault, and Batard Montrachet. Also, Sancerre and Pouilly-Fume in the Loire Valley and Pessac-Liognan in Bordeaux is the best white wine from other regions. There are about 27,000 wineries in France. The vineyards cover only 1.7% of the land in France, and 3.23% of the farmland is covered by vines. Terroir is how a particular region's climate, soils, and aspect or terrain affect the taste of wine. Côte means slope. In order to get more sun into the grapes and to drain the vines, winemakers grow vines on the hills towards the south and the southwest. An accurate translation of Côte would be hill. Italy is the biggest wine producer in the world, with an annual wine production of 4.796 million tons of wine. The grape used in Muscadet is also called Melon de Bourgogne. Nowadays, the grape is even called muscadet. Monastrell, also known as Mourvedre, is a key variety in Provence and the southern Rhone valley of France, where it is a regular component in Côte du Rhône and Châteauneuf-du-Pape blends. How can you tell if a wine is corked or bad? Corked wine is a specific condition. More precisely, it's wine tainted by TCA, a compound that reacts with wine and makes it taste and smell less than pleasant, ranging from a wet dog to a wet cardboard to a beach bathroom. Your first clue that your bottle is bad is if it's been in contact with air for too long or has a tainted cork, in which you can assume the liquid inside has turned and should not be consumed. Other signs are if the smell is off, if the wine tasted sweet, the wine is brownish in color. Would you tell me about 2007 Beaujolais Nouveau? Yes, Beaujolais Nouveau 2007 is a traditional Beaujolais, an easy-to-drink wine. Beaujolais Nouveau is celebrated on the third Thursday of November. It is a light wine that has been made the same year it is marketed and should be drunk within 6 months after the third Thursday of November. It should be served chilled. The color of the 2007 Beaujolais Nouveau is a little bit lighter than usual. Taste is smooth with aromas of cherry and plum. Can American-made sparkling wine be called champagne? Champagne wine is protected by an European regulation called Protected Designation of Origin, PDO. This European law protects the names of local products made in Europe. This law has been accepted by the American administration. However, traditional makers of sparkling wine in the US who made this kind of wine before the administration accepted the European law can still call your wine champagne. But new sparkling wine in the US cannot wear the name champagne on the label anymore. Are Rhone Valley and Côte du Rhône the same? It can be called the same because Côte du Rhône is the wine produced in the Rhone Valley, and the massive wine region is divided into two parts. Côte du Rhône village, which produces higher quality wines, and Côte du Rhône, which is less prestigious. What is better, 2004 or 2005 of Domaine of Romanée-Conti? 2005 vintage is slightly better than 2004 for Romanée-Conti. 2004 is a great vintage for Romanée-Conti, but production was lower than usual and therefore price gets steeper. This will be hard to find. 2005 is also a very good vintage, but this time production level is better. Therefore, although price is still expensive, Romanée-Conti will be easier to find. What are the 10 Beaujolais Crus? The 10 Beaujolais Crus wine area or terroirs are Brouilly, Chenas, Syrobal, Côte de Brouilly, Fleury, Juliana, Morgon, Molina-Vent, Regny, and Saint-Amour. What is the difference between Hermitage and Crozes Hermitage? Hermitage and Crozes Hermitage are two different wine appellations in Côte du Rhône, although they come from the same area. Hermitage is the most famous one and is considered as one of the best Rhone wines. Hermitage has a long history tracing back from the 10th century, while Crozes Hermitage is only 70 years old. Red wine from Crozes Hermitage is lighter, while Hermitage is flavorful. Actually, the same applies to white wine. The main difference comes from the soil. Hermitage has granite soil, while Crozes has more clay and sand. Hermitage vineyards are located at the top of hill, gaining full exposure from the sun, while Crozes Hermitage vineyards are just below. If you have a bottle of Chateau Le Gardin 1987, I have a bottle of Chateau de la Gardin 1987, Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Is it worth anything? If not, is it drinkable? Chateau de la Gardin is one of the best winemakers in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. 1987 is an interesting vintage, however, it is not one of the best. 1988 or 1989 are better. A bottle of Châteauneuf-du-Pape should mature between 5 and 20 years for the best vintages. Therefore, the bottle has maybe passed its optimum condition but still should be drinkable. although you should drink it before 2007. The bottle does not have a lot of value as the vintage is not one of the best and the wine has passed its best. What kind of wines people used to drink in the south of France? People in the south of France used to drink table wine. Red table wine is a typical everyday wine. In the summertime, people drink more rosé wine. Wine is local and typically bought at the co-op of the village where people live. In the South French wine regions, almost all villages have a co-op. What is the grape variety in Chablis? Chablis is a single variety grape wine. Only Chardonnay is grown there, and people call Chardonnay under the name of Bouno. There is only white wine in Chablis. Chablis is a typical mineral wine with aroma of butter and nuts. It is a dry white wine, fruity and vigorous. How long can Chablis be stored for before drinking? It depends on the classification of the Chablis wine. Appellation Petit Chablis Contrôlé. You should drink it now and it should be drunk young. Appellation Chablis Contrôlé. You can drink it between 2 to 5 years. Appellation Chablis Premier Cru Contrôlé. You can drink it between 3 to 7 years. Appellation Chablis Grand Cru Contrôlé. You can drink it between 5 to 12 years. What wine glass do you use with Chinon? Chinon is a light body red wine such as Beaujolais Nova, Bourguel, and Red Sancerre. As Chinon is a light body wine, it does not need a large bowl such as red Burgundy wine, which is a full body wine. A white wine glass, 3 ounces glass, is suitable for a light body red wine. However, a typical red wine glass, 4 or 5 ounces glass, is also suitable. Thank you.